live at the mercy of Mother Nature. In a world where disasters strike without warning and leave death and destruction in their wake. From the terrifying frenzy of a killer twister.
Oh my God! Tornado! Charlie!
And the explosive power of a volcano.
Our abilities are puny compared to that force of nature.
To the unbridled fury of a firestorm. And the awesome rage of a deadly avalanche.
At any point in time, in a heartbeat, everything can change.
No one is safe from the relentless and unforgiving forces that are unleashed when nature suddenly spins totally out of control. They are nature's most concentrated and intense form of atmospheric energy. Tornadoes. Their funnel clouds can pack winds in excess of 300 miles per hour and can range in size from as small as 150 feet to over a mile in width.
This thing is moving right at us. Oh, baby!
While some last for only a few minutes, others can wreak havoc for more than an hour.
They are extremely powerful. They can pick up a locomotive and blow it over. They can blow a car a mile. They can take a concrete building, a brick building, a building with steel girders, and they can flat level it. What you doing? Storm Road?
Oklahoma meteorologist Gary England has studied twisters for more than 30 years. His work, which has helped to develop state-of-the-art tornado warning and tracking systems, has also given him an intimate knowledge of how these powerful and deadly natural phenomena are born.
When a thunderstorm forms, occasionally we'll get what we call a mesocyclone. A mesocyclone is just a rotation, a low pressure area inside the thunderstorm. That rotation, if it intensifies, if the conditions are proper, sometimes that'll develop into a very large tornado.
But all tornadoes are not created equal.
There are different categories of tornadoes with respect to wind speed. F0, for example, pretty weak, about 40 to 75 miles an hour. And the F1's about 75 to 100 miles an hour. Most of them are in that category, about 65%. Only about 2% are what we call the F4 or the F5. The F4 is roughly 200 to 250 miles an hour. The F5 is about 250 to 300. They're almost like humans. They have a lifespan. They're born and then they gradually mature and then they go away. And once they pass, you wonder if it was really ever there because there's nothing in the sky where it was. It's really a fascinating event.
On April 16th, 1998, a swarm of F3 and F4 tornadoes swept through central Tennessee. After destroying much of downtown Nashville, the fast-moving storm system headed north toward the town of Lebanon, where Regina Vaughn was at home with her two sons.
We were under tornado warnings, and about 3:45, they reported that Nashville had been hit.
Regina picked up her camcorder and began shooting the approaching storm.
The clouds in the front, they were really black clouds, and they were just kind of swirling and coming together.
Mom, let's go in the basement, Dad!
And I turned around and looked at him. I said, no, son, we're fine. And I looked back into the camera, and right then, the tornado just formed. So then I panicked.
Oh my God! Zach, it's a tornado! Charlie!
I dropped the camera, but it hung on my shoulder, grabbed Zach, pushed him through the house.
Charlie! Where's my shoes? Where's my... No, hurry!
They race to the cellar,
Get in there, son.
but despite the danger,
Get in there.
Regina found herself transfixed by the tornado and continued to record as it moved closer and closer to her home.
I have seen them from a distance, but I've never seen one up close like that, and I've never seen one form.
Mom, let's go!
It was almost like a finger coming down out of the sky.
Oh my God! Did you see that?
Regina finally took refuge in her basement. And within a few minutes, the tornado had passed, narrowly missing her home.
I'm very aware of how fortunate I am. And since that time, since I've seen a lot of the damage when we had gone into Nashville and we saw so much devastation, it really hit me what could have happened that day.
Regina and her family were indeed extremely lucky. However, that was not the case for many residents of southwest Kansas in the spring of 1991. Just before 6 p.m. on April 26th, an F5 tornado sets down just outside of Wichita.
Look at the stuff floating in the air, Ginger. Take cover.
As the giant twister heads south, it gains in strength and in size. At McConnell Air Force Base, it levels everything in its path, including a hospital and more than 100 homes. A few minutes later, another F5 touches down just 6 miles away, alongside the Kansas Turnpike. A local news crew stops to record the awesome sight, then realize they are directly in the twister's path.
Guys, let's get out of here. Throw us in the back. Let's go. Go. Shoot it. Better floor it. Shoot it. Watch faster, Greg. It's catching us. You gotta go, buddy.
Despite speeds in excess of 80 miles an hour, they are unable to outrun the deadly tornado.
Get up under here. Get up under the girders. Is that where we want to go? Yes.
They race to take cover beneath the freeway overpass, where a father and his 2 daughters have also sought refuge.
Keep rolling, Ted. It's coming at us. Keep rolling. Hang on, you'll be fine. Hang on to the girders.
Moments later, the tornado passes directly over them.
It sounded like a freight train. It just passed right on top of us.
Then, as quickly as it came, the twister is gone. But left behind in its wake, dozens of injured motorists, their cars and trucks scattered about the turnpike like so many children's toys.
I chose the lesser of 2 evils, either jump out and run or ride it out. I rode it out.
In less than an hour, the tornadoes that struck Kansas on April 26, 1991, killed 20 people and left nearly 5,000 homeless.
Is anybody in there?
But as deadly and devastating as twisters are, they cannot compare to the unbridled fury of nature's most out-of-control storms. Hurricanes are the single most destructive natural disasters on our planet.
You generally have some warning before a hurricane strikes, but when it does strike, it's unbelievable. And it can create some incredible damage.
Like tornadoes, hurricanes are also rated for their intensity and strength. Category 1s, the weakest, have winds between 74 and 95 miles per hour and cause relatively minor damage. At the other end of the scale are Category 5s. These strongest and rarest of all hurricanes pack winds in excess of 155 miles an hour and leave catastrophic damage in their wake. These killer storms begin in the Atlantic Ocean, off the coast of West Africa. As hot, humid air rises, it forms large thunderstorms. As these powerful storm cells travel across the ocean, they gain strength, creating the engine that drives the hurricane.
And you begin to get winds that can be clocked, say, 170 miles an hour. When you have that much energy, it's extremely difficult to determine where it's going to go and how fast it's going to get there.
On August 23, 1992, Hurricane Andrew was gathering strength in the warm waters of the Atlantic. The Category 4 hurricane was on a deadly collision course with South Florida. While thousands of people boarded up their homes and evacuated, others decided to take their chances and weather the storm. Among them, Joe Fagan and his pregnant wife, Tanya. Their home video diary chronicled a night of terror they will never forget.
Somewhere out there, that's where Andrew is. Hopefully this house is going to stay together. I'm praying to God it does.
The videotape, it started as a lark. It started as something I could use as a memento in the future and show my unborn child and show everybody what a hurricane was like.
We are right there, right in direct line of the eye.
I wanted to kill him. He was happy because he had his video camera, and he kept saying, nothing is going to happen, honey. But I know, I had the feeling how bad it was going to be.
It's just about 4 o'clock, and we've officially lost power.
Taking the video and walking around doing something helped me to relieve some of the anxiety I was feeling. Tanya was very upset the fact that I was doing that.
If you notice the blue lights flashing in the distance, those are all the electrical power breakers that are popping. The eye has reached Miami Beach. They have it clocked at anywhere from 100 to 110 miles per hour right now. They estimate in about a half hour the eye wall will be on us.
Started to get a little bit excited as things got a little bit worse, as the winds picked up and we started hearing more and more increased noises outside around the house.
Right now we're sustaining probably about 140 mile an hour winds. We're losing the tiles off the top of the roof. We are losing the tiles off the top of the roof. God, please let the windows stay. That didn't sound good, did it? Time to get to the safe room.
At that point, Joe and Tanya sought refuge in the downstairs bathroom.
This is so scary.
This is
It's
scary.
horrible.
We were in the second bath when the eye was coming upon us, and we knew it was very intense.
We're losing the roof. The roof is peeling off.
And that was probably the point where I said, this is going to be bad.
I'll tell you what, folks, this is scary as hell.
We're listening to these noises and these like explosions, and we really thought that that was it, that we were not going to make it.
So we said goodbye. We kissed each other goodbye. We said we'd take care of each other. We always loved each other. It's just a total emotional, I guess, breakdown.
What I most was afraid of was that I wasn't going to get to see my baby.
For 2 agonizing hours, Hurricane Andrew battered the frightened couple's home. Then, with the dawn, came an eerie calm. And for Joe and Tanya, the realization that they had survived.
It's almost 8 o'clock in the morning.
After the eye went past us and we could see the light coming up from daybreak, I stepped out of the bathroom for the first time.
Total devastation.
saw the destruction that was just overwhelming. We lost the entire house. The interior of the house was just gutted. All the windows blew in. The negative pressure was incredible. Our ears were popping like you wouldn't believe. Some of the destruction caused by Mr. Andrew.
Was devastating because was so much destruction. But that didn't matter anymore because we were alive. And the baby was kicking, so.
Joe and Tanya Fagan were among the more than 3 million people whose lives were changed by one of the worst hurricanes and the costliest natural disaster in U.S. history. Beneath the majestic snow-covered beauty of the Swiss Alps hides an elusive killer. Like a tidal wave on land, it strikes with astonishing speed and annihilates everything in its path.
We have had reports of avalanches that were 17 kilometers wide. We have clocked avalanches at over 200 miles per hour. That amount of force has terrific impact pressures. It can bend steel girders. It can destroy reinforced concrete buildings. And it can certainly destroy a stick-built framed house.
The winter of 1999 brought record snowfall amounts to the Austrian and Swiss Alps.
Europe, Switzerland, and Austria came into an avalanche cycle that hadn't been seen in recorded history in 400 or 500 years since people first started inhabiting some of these valleys and some of these towns. And the mountains were just overwhelmed by the amount of snow that actually fell.
Just after 4 p.m., February 23rd, 1999, the snowpack above the villages of Galtur and Falzur suddenly gives way and sends a wall of snow 16 feet high barreling down on the 700 residents and more than 3,500 tourists. The avalanche buried hundreds of people beneath tons of snow. The force of the massive wall flattened dozens of homes, crushed cars, and plowed a trench 30 feet deep between the small resort towns. But Europe's deadliest avalanche season did not end with the tragedy at Galtur and Falzur. In the weeks that followed, a dozen more avalanches claimed as many lives. These deadly downslide along the Austrian Alps resulted from a shifting of the elements within the snowpack.
When the snow falls, it starts to develop different layers. Some of these layers are very weak, some of them are very strong. And by the time March rolls around, we may have 6, 12, 100 feet of snow on the ground. After a while, we get enough weight on top of that weak foundation. That foundation can no longer support that weight, and we get failure.
And all that is needed is a trigger to send these unstable layers of heavy snow cascading down the steep slopes. Snowmobilers venturing onto dangerous slopes in the backcountry have triggered dozens of avalanches, putting themselves and others at risk. In 1997, Greg Schultz and Jim Fenneman, along with a group of their friends, went joyriding in the mountains near Grand Lake, Colorado. Suddenly, the two men found themselves in a life and death race with an avalanche. While Jim managed to escape, Greg was overcome by a giant wall of white. A few minutes later, Greg's friends spotted his hand protruding from the snow.
Once you have been caught and buried in an avalanche, your only chance of survival really relies on your friends.
Using helmet shields as shovels, they managed to clear the snow from his face.
Really, you've only got 15, 20 minutes to dig your friend out, because that's about all the oxygen you're really going to have available to you when you're buried in the snowpack.
Rod, leave the helmet on for a while. Leave it on, guys.
Although now able to breathe easier, Greg was not out of danger.
Looks like we almost got both legs out.
Hypothermia began to set in, and he soon lost consciousness.
Does anybody have a blanket or something we can wrap around him? Got my coat right there. Spare coats over here. Spare coats, wrap him up.
The rescuers used their own coats to warm their friend as they continued to frantically try to free him.
Now what about right there? Yeah. Is that your knee? Yeah, okay. I didn't know if that was a bone sticking out.
Finally, after more than an hour, Greg regained consciousness and soon was free.
There was your arm right here. Hey, Greg. The happy ending, buddy.
Incredibly, although weak and shaken from his ordeal, he was able to walk away.
I've heard people say that if I swim with sharks long enough and I play with snakes long enough, I'm going to get bit. And the same thing applies to avalanches. If you're in avalanche terrain all the time and you're not doing it in a safe way, eventually you're going to get bit, and it may only give you a terrifying experience, but it may also kill you.
While shifting winter snows can transform a majestic mountain into a scene of disaster, warm rains and a sudden spring thaw can conspire to create an equally deadly downslide.
Mudslides are all too often caused when you've lost vegetation because of one reason or another. Maybe a forest fire. Maybe because man has gone in and cut down all the trees. We end up with not having natural barriers to water runoff and begin to have nothing in a root structure that keeps the soil kind of in one place. And it begins to move, and you get a mudslide. And when it gets going, it can literally tear a house right off of its foundation and bury people and cars and anything else.
The winter of 1998 was one of the wettest on record in California history. Unrelenting rains brought hardship and heartache to millions throughout the state. In Laguna Beach, residents were abruptly awakened just after midnight when a rain-soaked hillside suddenly gave way, sending hundreds of tons of water and mud crashing into their homes. Many were trapped with no way to escape.
A lot of screaming, just yelling and screaming. It sounded like people were dying in there.
Others were swept away by the fast-moving torrent of mud. Among them, a 9-month-old baby, ripped from her mother's arms as their apartment collapsed around them.
The baby came floating down this ravine, and we were, petrified, wondering if the baby was alive.
Miraculously, the next morning, the little girl was found alive.
It was just a clump of mud. I couldn't believe I was holding a child.
In 1 week alone, mudslides throughout Southern California took the lives of 12 people and caused more than $50 million in property damage. That same year, on the other side of the world, a much larger mudslide killed hundreds in the Italian town of Sarno. Just after 7 a.m. on May 8, 1998, a giant 10-foot wall of mud descended upon the unsuspecting villagers. For more than 15 hours, frantic townspeople joined authorities to search for survivors and rescue trapped victims. More than 600 people were buried alive as they slept. Many of the bodies will never be recovered. The hardening clay has become a permanent tomb for many of the town's dead.
There really is no precaution a person can take to prepare for gigantic mud flows. If one is coming to town, its effects are so complete, the only practical course is evacuation.
But many experts believe that the tragedy at Sarno could have been avoided. The town was built on a hazardous layer of clay and chalk, common terrain in the mountains surrounding Naples. When saturated, this soil combination becomes extremely weak and crumbles.
These mountains are notoriously unstable and can produce devastating mud flows that can travel miles down slope.
Experts warn that the climactic conditions that created the catastrophe at Sarno are not at all uncommon, and that thousands, perhaps millions, could be left homeless or even killed the next time nature goes totally out of control. No place on Earth has experienced the catastrophic effects of wildfires more than Southern California. The arid climate and rugged terrain of the region offer a perfect breeding ground for out-of-control infernos.
We have steep mountains, a lot of canyons, heavily brushed areas. Then you have the heat, low humidities, wind speeds, all combined for a disastrous event.
Every year, dry, hot desert winds, known as Santa Anas, begin blowing down the canyons and mountain passes of Southern California.
It's created by a high pressure over Utah and a low pressure off the coast of California. When as it comes through the mountain canyons of Los Angeles, it increases its velocity, and it's a perfect condition for a rapid fire spread.
Known as the devil winds, Santa Anas serve as the life's blood of wildfires, providing them with both oxygen and energy. These conditions were all at play in November of 1993, when an arsonist's match ignited one of the worst firestorms in Southern California history. Thousands of acres and hundreds of homes were destroyed by the out-of-control blaze.
If you can imagine what a hurricane is like, wind and the rain blowing horizontal and everything coming apart and tree limbs flying through the air, well, the same things happen in a firestorm, only it's fire instead of water. And the fire is in such intensity that it's sucking the oxygen out of the air also, so it's very difficult to breathe. Someplace you don't want to be.
But sometimes, the men and women who battle these out-of-control blazes find themselves helplessly caught in the eye of the storm. Such was the case in 1993 for 18-year-old Gabe Larios and 24-year-old Chris Barth. On August 20th, Larios and Barth and 6 other Los Angeles County firefighters were deployed from a helicopter to a hillside above a fast-moving blaze in Altadena, California. Suddenly, they found themselves engulfed in a wall of flames.
The smoke hit us real bad. then I kind of fell down straight into the hill, covering my face, and the hill flashed over on us.
The men were trapped in a savage inferno, capable of melting flesh from the bone.
It was deafening when the fire hit. People explained it like a freight train or, a jet taking off. And I remember opening my eyes and looking, and it was just bright orange. And I just remember being like, whoa, it kicked in that, I was actually being burned.
Gabe and Chris barely escaped with their lives. Each sustained second and third degree burns over nearly half of their bodies. But they were among the lucky ones. Two of their fellow crew members, Chris Herman and Art Ruska, perished in the flames.
I found out that Chris Herman and Art Ruska had died. I still, I'm having difficulty talking about it. I lost a loved one.
I've never visited their grave sites, and I never went to the funeral, so in the back of my mind, I still picture them as somewhere else. I haven't quite come to grip with their loss.
For most firefighters or police officers, there's nothing worse than when one of their own goes down. They're killed in the line of duty. This is a very traumatic event because every firefighter can identify with that individual. There but for the grace of God go he or she. Every time they walk into the eye of the hurricane or into the midst of that fire, they have to put the threat of danger in the background, because if it was in the foreground, they couldn't concentrate on what they had to do. But when one of their own is killed or severely injured, all of a sudden, that normal defense mechanism of it being in the background is dropped and it's in the foreground, and now the sense of danger of what they're doing is right there, right in their face, right between their eyes.
The raging power of a wildfire has an equally out-of-control natural brother in the form of deadly flash floods. Every year, they kill thousands of people, drive millions from their homes, and destroy billions of dollars worth of property. Flash floods spare no one and no place. They can happen anywhere, on city streets, rural streams, or mountain canyons.
A flash flood occurs anytime we have extremely heavy rain over a very short length of time. And it can come sometimes from just rapidly melting snow upstream and creating such a mass of water that it's not able to be absorbed by the soil, so it begins to run off rapidly into a stream or a river. So we end up with a wall of water that, if we get caught in its path, it can be deadly.
In 1997, the normally dry Skunk Creek Wash outside of Phoenix, Arizona, was turned into a raging river by a severe storm system that dropped more than 3 inches of rain in less than 2 hours. Rescuers were called to the scene of a stranded car caught in the flash flood. The driver was trapped inside, unable to open her doors against the incredible force of the quickly rising water. A helicopter was brought in, and Phoenix firefighter Ron Cummings was deployed onto the sinking car in a desperate attempt to save the trapped driver. Although the storm that caused the flood had long passed, the surging water continued to rise and gain speed. Time was of the essence. Finally, Cummings managed to help the cold, wet, and extremely frightened driver, young Tran, onto the skids of the chopper. And both the rescuer and victim were airlifted to dry ground. Young Tran later told authorities that she had no idea of the dangerous situation that she had driven into as she crossed Skunk Creek Wash.
Traumatic events can shatter our beliefs, our assumptions. If I believe that the world is an orderly, predictable place, and I'm involved in an out-of-order, chaotic event, then my belief is shattered.
It's all moving! The whole thing's moving!
People are amazingly resilient. Less than 10 to 20% of us who are exposed to some type of life-threatening or out-of-control event will develop what we call post-traumatic stress reactions or disorder. The majority of individuals, in fact, over 80% of us, will do just fine and recover fairly well from that event.
Volcanoes. They are as old as time itself and can unleash energy equivalent to 25,000 atomic bombs. Throughout the centuries, flowing lava and choking ash from massive eruptions have wiped out cities and entire civilizations. But despite the overwhelming destructive nature of these explosive giants, they are an essential part of the continuing evolution of our planet.
The Earth contains a very large amount of heat, which is trying to escape the planet. It does so in various ways, one of which is through volcanic conduits. There are various types of volcanoes. Volcanoes that produce primarily running lava build up very large mounds that are gently sloping, and these are called volcanic shields. Kilauea in Hawaii is the most active volcanic shield volcano in the world. The current eruption has gone on for 16 years continuously. Fluid lava flows pouring down the mountainside have entered housing developments and covered miles of roads and can sweep away everything in their paths. The deadliest volcanic eruptions tend to take place on the cone-shaped volcanoes such as Mount St. Helens in the Cascades or Montserrat in the Antilles. Not only do they erupt explosively, but their flanks are weak and can produce catastrophic avalanches and devastating mud flows.
In 1980, Mount St. Helens provided the world with a shocking display of nature's fury unleashed.
The whole north flank collapsed and released a titanic outpouring of vaporized magma called a pyroclastic flow. And these are essentially hotter than air clouds of mixed ash and gases that roar with the velocity of a hurricane down a mountainside and can blow flat a town as clean as a nuclear bomb.
On May 20th, 1980, news cameraman Dave Crockett was less than 5 miles from ground zero. Within 30 minutes of the eruption, he was engulfed by a suffocating cloud of ash. Dave abandoned his car and, with his camera rolling, desperately tried to escape. His narrative is a haunting testament to both the awesome power of nature and the perseverance of the human spirit.
I'm walking towards the only light I can see on top of a ridge. I can hear the mountain behind me rumbling. There's an enormous mud and water slide came down and washed out the road. I never really thought I'd believe this or say this, but at this moment, I honest to God believe I'm dead. I feel the ash now in my eyes. It's getting very hard to breathe. Burnt to breathe. Oh dear God. My God, this is hell. I just can't describe it. It's pitch black. Just pitch black. This is hell on earth I'm walking through.
For the next 2 hours, Dave Crockett struggled toward the only light he could see.
Only this air would clear for 2 minutes. Give me a clear breath of air. I don't know what's in this stuff, man. I can tell you one thing. This stuff is not made for humans to breathe. My God, I didn't realize how badly I wanted to live. Oh, I wanted to live so bad. You know, Shram, you were right. Never should have come up here. You were right. I still say I'm going to live to tell my grandchildren about this, so. With God's help. With God's help, I am.
Dave's prayers were answered. Miraculously, he emerged from the darkness and snapped this victorious self-portrait. He later learned just how lucky he was. More than 60 people died that day, many buried beneath tons of ash. Their bodies never recovered. While Mount St. Helens laid waste everything for 20 miles in a matter of seconds, the Soufrière Hills volcano on the island of Montserrat has been raining down death and destruction for years. During that time, island resident David Lee has chronicled the violent life of a volcano and the slow death of an island.
I've been documenting the volcanic eruption here in Montserrat since its beginning in July of '95. We're going to take a trip up there and see what it's all about up in the vent. I have been going up there to capture images of this volcano up close. We're at about 2,200 feet. Everything's just dead.
David will never forget one of his first and nearly his last close encounter with the unpredictable volcano.
Just as I got up to the peak, turned the camera on, I heard this strange noise. It's right in here, you start to hear it. And it makes your heart beat real fast. And it's hot already, and it's spewing right now. And as I got to the crater edge, there was a big eruption that came spewing up out of the crater. That's hot stuff going on. But it's the whole mountain shaking harder and harder. So I'm getting out of here. And I'm telling you, I know I set the record running down that mountain. I'm out of here. It was just shivering, 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 up and down under your feet. And you could feel this awesome power underneath vibrating, wanting to come out. Do I look scared? I'm not out of here yet. I'm only down about 600 feet. If the whole thing went, wouldn't have a chance up here.
Despite his initial close call, David continued his work.
I think it's really important that what happened here was documented both up at the mountain and to the people left here in Montserrat. We've had a major eruption here.
On August 22nd, 1997, a sudden large eruption took David and much of the island by surprise. In a matter of minutes, tons of volcanic ash was blasted into the air and began smothering the southern part of Montserrat.
Shield, it's hitting like it did the last time I came up here. You can see how heavy a cloud it is. It's actually, you can hear it, the rocks sitting on the roof. Lightning and thunder here. I mean, this black cloud fell upon me, and it rained gravel and mud, and it was hot, it was sweaty, all the windows were up, and it was this, at noon, you were in this pitch black darkness.
Trapped with little hope of escape, David could do nothing more than follow the dim taillights of a car on the road just ahead of him.
Can't even find the car ahead of me.
Finally, after several agonizing moments, David managed to escape the darkness.
He must have lost his windshield washers because he's leaning out the car door. We were able to drive out of that and then into the village of Salem, which was just
covered in mud. Everything and everybody was in this mud rain. They'd been just on the edge of the blackout.
This cataclysmic eruption, and several others that soon followed, led to the evacuation of several thousand islanders.
Estimates 4 to 8 inches of ash down there. This is not like your Hawaiian volcanoes where the lava runs down the side of the mountain. This has many events that are terrible and catastrophic, and many people were forced to leave because they'd lost everything they had as that mountain would go out of control and just wipe out villages.
Once home to more than 11,000 people, continual eruptions and massive pyroclastic flows have deposited more than 12 feet of ash on the southern half of the island, creating a virtual wasteland where paradise once stood. For more than 4 years, David's self-produced documentaries have provided a haunting chronicle of the slow and sad transformation of Montserrat.
The bank of Montserrat is pretty much buried.
We have no ability to control the force of a volcanic eruption. Our abilities are puny compared to that force of nature. It truly is a power that's out of control.
Although we can never control the immense and destructive power of Mother Nature, we need not be victims of her unrelenting wrath. When it comes to tornadoes, improved satellite weather forecasts, advanced warning systems, and other new technologies are helping to save lives.
Doppler radar will give you rainfall intensities, how much it's raining, and also Doppler radar will reach out there and measure how fast those pieces of rain and hail are moving and what direction they're moving. And from that direction of movement, speed of movement, we're going to know in most cases where a tornado is, where it's going to go.
This vastly improved ability to accurately forecast tornadoes has given people more time to seek shelter.
And we have found through the years the safest part is the center part of the house, preferably a closet or a bathroom. All you're doing is putting as many walls between you and the tornado as possible. If people know their safety precautions and know what to do, they're going to be just fine in most cases.
Technical advances are also giving geologists the ability to better warn the public of impending volcanic eruptions.
There are close to 600 active or potentially active volcanoes on the Earth's land surface today. One of the most exciting recent developments in the study of volcanoes has to do with satellite interferometry. And that's a technique whereby satellites essentially photograph a volcano, and this photography is taken repeatedly so that any change that takes place in the shape of that mountain can be recorded from space. It's changes in the shape of a volcano that are sometimes critical to telling us it's entering an eruptive state, getting ready to go. The big issue in a volcanic eruption is not an eruption about which we have no power. It's about panic and about evacuation, about, if we're fortunate enough, being able to forecast the next move nature is going to take.
In mountains throughout the world, ski patrols are preempting nature and actually creating avalanches in an effort to prevent disaster.
Their whole goal is to try and start smaller avalanches that won't close highways down or that just keep deep weaknesses from forming in the snowpack. And that way slab avalanches don't build up to the dangerous sizes that catch people unawares.
But avalanche experts agree that educating outdoor enthusiasts about the dangers of unstable snowpacks is crucial in preventing tragedy on the slopes.
If you're not familiar with the mountains and you're not familiar with avalanches, but you are finding that you want to go into the mountains more, then it is highly recommended to take an avalanche course so that you know when you are putting yourself at danger or at risk.
Over 60,000 disasters occurred last year in the United States, according to the American Red Cross. And those disasters were anything from single-family fires up to floods, tornadoes, hurricanes, earthquakes, etc. In a community-wide disaster, or even a single-family disaster where the family loses their home, all of their belongings, the entire family is dealing with loss of what's familiar to them. There's no place to go that feels that there's order in the midst of the chaos. So our advice to individuals as they're recovering is to begin to do your normal routine as quickly as you can. Things as simple as prepare dinner, go to the store, begin to clean up the debris, begin to do things to start to restore a sense of order to all of this chaos so people can begin to psychologically start to recover and regain control.